Hey guys, this is Weathercast 100 here. Right now we are looking at a loop of the Atlantic satellite. As you can see right here, we have Tropical Storm Carl over the Yucatan, Hurricane Igor out in the middle Atlantic, and Hurricane Julia over in the far eastern Atlantic. Julia was the farthest west Category 4 hurricane ever and is now waning in intensity and should continue to do so over the course of its lifetime. And also, Igor and Julia were the only second time in history where we had two Category 4 hurricanes at once in the Atlantic Basin. So that was a rare event in itself as well. As you can see, Igor is growing in size as it crosses 20 north. Should continue growing in size and should become a fairly large storm up in this area of the Atlantic as it approaches areas such as Bermuda. And it should pass somewhere in between Bermuda and the United States, is what I'm thinking right now. All the National Hurricane Center forecast cones take it right over Bermuda, and if that happens, that would be like the worst case scenario for Bermuda. That would be a very bad storm there. So I'm hoping right now that it passes probably at least 100 miles to the west, which is what I'm thinking of Bermuda. So anywhere from, say 70 or 68 west, probably to 72 west is what I'm thinking right now, maybe in that area, because it's moving slower than the models have been anticipating for the entirety of its life. Basically, they've had to correct westward. So basically just it'll be a big wave maker for the United States, but that should be about it. Some rip currents and some big waves, and that should be about it. But for Bermuda needs to watch this a little bit more closely, as if it jogs just a little bit to the east, you guys could get pretty well pounded. Right now, here is the wind shear in the Atlantic. As you can see, it's pretty conducive for development in the Gulf. Tropical Storm Carl moving into the Bay of Campeche and should intensify into a minimal hurricane by the time it makes landfall on the northern Mexico coast. Areas in southern Texas can expect heavy rain and maybe 45-mile-an-hour winds, which is minimal tropical storm force winds. But that's about it. Julia is not really a big threat as it stands right now, but we'll keep an eye on it. Right here you can see Hurricane Igor, and it's looking pretty good on satellite, and that's because it's being ventilated very well by a trough that's out here in the northwest Atlantic, up by the northeast coast. As you can see, the projected path for Julia keeps it at a Category 3 all the way up until Thursday, and right now it's minimum central pressure is at 953 millibars, winds at 125 miles an hour. That does make this a major hurricane. It is moving off to the northwest at 17 miles per hour. This should continue off to the northwest. This is a fish storm. No one needs to worry about this. But it should be like a pretty big gale out here, near Spain and stuff like that. As it comes in, it's just a big area of low pressure. But other than that, nothing really to worry about. Here is Julia on satellite. As you can see, the color is starting to fade a little bit as it wanes in intensity, and like I said, it should continue to wane in intensity over the entirety of its lifetime. So nothing to worry about with Julia. It's a fish storm, thankfully, and it will be continuing to turn out to sea and weaken in intensity. Some of the models for Julia, just taking it off to the northwest and then off to the northeast and turning it out to sea. Right here we have satellite imagery of Tropical Storm Carl. As you can see, it's not looking too bad. It almost intensified all the way up to a hurricane before it made landfall on the Yucatan, which actually this reminds me a lot of what Alex did back in June. As a matter of fact, it's fairly similar to what Alex did. Intensified to almost a hurricane before it made landfall, came across, weakened to a tropical depression, then quickly intensified once it moved off the coast to a Category 2 hurricane by the time it made landfall on the northern Mexico coast. Right here we have forecast models for Hurricane Igor. As you can see, it takes it off to the northwest, then eventually north, and then northeast. But they all take it pretty much directly over Bermuda, but what I'm thinking right now is probably going to be a little bit further west than these models are thinking. So I think Bermuda may be spared the worst of it, but like I said, they'll have to keep a very close eye on it, because it is possible that it could jog off to the east and impact Bermuda directly, that would be a very, very bad storm for Bermuda, so they need to keep their eye on this really closely. Here are some other forecast models taking the storm. As you can see, basically they're all in very good agreement, just taking it off to the northwest, north, then eventually northeast and out to sea. The United States doesn't really need to worry about this, fairly certain, except for maybe some high waves and rip currents along the eastern seaboard. Here's the projected path for it. It keeps it at a Category 4. Downgrades it tonight to a Category 3. I'm skeptical of that happening simply because of its structure on satellite and how impressive it is. But it keeps it at a Category 4 all the way up until Friday, and then decreases it to a Category 1, and then quickly dissipates it in the Atlantic. Well, dissipating, I mean relative to its current intensity. It'll still be a Category 1 all the way out to Monday, but I think it may be a Category 2 or Category 3 probably all the way to Sunday. We'll see what happens with that though. Right now winds are 135 miles an hour, minimum central pressure 942 millibars, moving west-northwest to 8 miles an hour. So like I said, hopefully it passes just west of Bermuda, but if not, Bermuda, batten down the hatches, because it is possible that it could jog just a little bit further east and possibly nick you guys, so you guys need to be watching this one. Here's satellite imagery of Igor. As you can see, it's pretty impressive on satellite. Got that nice buzzsaw look to it. Not as impressive as it was earlier, though. Like yesterday and also the day before yesterday, it was looking quite impressive. But I think it'll regain that structure as we go through the day. But as you can see, it is growing in size, and it will become a fairly large hurricane by the time it gets into the northeastern Atlantic. All right, guys, this is Weathercast 100. See ya.